The pregnancy test trembled in Lena Carter's hands, two pink lines glowing like a death sentence under the harsh fluorescent lights of her cramped bathroom. In 6 weeks, her secret marriage to Adrian Volkov, the most feared man in the city, was supposed to end. 1 year. That was the deal. Money for silence, freedom for both. But Adrian never signed the divorce papers, and now she carried a secret that would chain her to him forever. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky like a warning. Inside, everything she'd planned to escape suddenly became the very thing that would trap her. Will Lena survive when the most dangerous man in the underworld discovers she's pregnant with his child? Stay until the end to find out. And don't forget to hit like and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Lena Carter had learned early in life that survival meant making herself invisible. At 26, she'd perfected the art. Head down in hospital corridors, eyes averted on subway platforms, blend into the background, ask for nothing, expect less. It was a skill born from necessity. Growing up in foster care taught you that the moment someone noticed you, trouble followed. But 12 months ago, she'd made herself visible to exactly the wrong person, Adrian Volkov. The memory of their first meeting still burned like acid in her veins. She'd been working a double shift at Metropolitan General, exhausted to the point of delirium, when a convoy of black SUVs had roared into the emergency bay. Men in expensive suits had flooded through the doors carrying a bleeding figure between them, shouting orders that sent the entire ER into chaos. And in the center of it all stood Adrian Volkov, 6 feet 3 inches of controlled violence wrapped in a 3-piece suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from granite, eyes the color of winter storms, a presence that made everyone in the room simultaneously want to bow and run. Private room, now! His voice had cut through the pandemonium like a blade. And someone get me a nurse who knows how to keep her mouth shut. Lena should have stayed invisible, should have let someone else volunteer. But the man bleeding out on the gurney looked barely 20, terror written across his young face, and something in her couldn't walk away. "I'll do it," she'd heard herself say. Adrian's gaze had locked onto her with the force of a physical blow. For 3 heartbeats, she'd been certain she'd made the last mistake of her life. Then he'd nodded once, sharp and decisive. "What's your name?" "Lena Carter." "You understand what discretion means, Lena Carter. I understand that kid is going to bleed out if we stand here talking about it." The corner of his mouth had twitched. Not quite a smile, but something that might have been respect. "Then let's not waste time." She'd saved the kid's life that night, extracting a bullet and stitching him back together while Adrian watched from the corner like a dark angel of death. She'd asked no questions, made no judgments, did her job with steady hands and a locked jaw. When it was over, Adrian had pressed an envelope into her palm. "For your discretion." Inside had been $10,000 in cash. Lena had stared at the money, then at him. "I was doing my job. And I'm paying you for doing it quietly. There's a difference." She should have given it back, should have walked away. But $10,000 meant catching up on 3 months of overdue rent. It meant not choosing between groceries and electricity. It meant breathing room she hadn't had in years. So she'd taken the money and told herself that was the end of it. She'd been catastrophically wrong. 2 weeks later, Adrian had appeared at her apartment door at midnight, immaculate in charcoal cashmere despite the rain-soaked streets outside. "I have a proposition for you, Miss Carter. I don't... Hear me first. Decide after." He'd stepped inside without invitation, filling her tiny studio apartment with his overwhelming presence. "I need a wife, temporarily. 1 year. At the end of which you'll receive $500,000 and we'll dissolve the marriage quietly." Lena had actually laughed. It was either that or scream. "You're insane." "I'm practical. I have business interests that require a certain domestic appearance. You need money. We both benefit from an arrangement that serves our purposes without emotional complication." "Why me?" "Because you're invisible. Because you know how to keep secrets. Because you want money, not power, and that makes you less dangerous than any woman who moves in my circles." He'd pulled out a contract, placing it on her battered coffee table. 1 year. "You live in my house, appear at necessary events, ask no questions about my business. In return, you receive an immediate payment of $50,000 and the remaining $450,000 when we divorce. This is insane, she'd repeated, but her hands had already been reaching for the contract. This is survival. You know what that looks like. I saw it in your eyes that night in the hospital. You do what you must to survive, so do I. He'd produced a pen. The question is whether you're brave enough to take what you need. She'd signed. The marriage had been performed in a courthouse by a judge who clearly didn't want to know why Adrian Volkov needed a rush ceremony. No guests, no celebration, just two strangers binding themselves together with legal ties and mutual benefit. The first month had been awkward hell. Adrian's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building in Midtown that screamed money and menace in equal measure. She'd been given her own suite, bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, with instructions to stay out of his way unless specifically summoned for an appearance. She'd learned his patterns. He left before dawn and returned after midnight. He took calls in languages she didn't understand. He disappeared for days at a time without explanation. When he was home, he moved through the space like a ghost, all predatory grace and cold efficiency. But somewhere around month 3, things had shifted. It started small. Conversation over coffee when their schedules accidentally aligned. His hand at the small of her back at a charity gala, warm and possessive. The way his eyes tracked her movements when he thought she wasn't looking. Month 6 brought the first time he'd kissed her, a charity event where photographers demanded couple photos. It was supposed to be for show. A brief press of lips to maintain appearances. Instead, it had been incendiary. Adrian had pulled her close with one hand fisted in her hair, the other splayed across her lower back, and kissed her like he was claiming territory, like he was branding her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. When he'd finally released her, they'd both been breathing hard, and something dangerous had sparked in his storm-colored eyes. That, he'd said roughly, was a mistake. But he'd made the same mistake again, and again, in the car ride home, in the elevator, against the door of her suite with his body pressed hard against hers and his mouth doing things that should have been illegal. They'd tumbled into bed together that night in a tangle of desperate hands and broken rules. The sex had been volcanic, raw and consuming and absolutely catastrophic to every boundary they'd established. And then they'd done it again. And again. For 6 months, they'd existed in a strange limbo, strangers by contract, lovers by night, never discussing what any of it meant, never acknowledging that the arrangement had become something else entirely. Until 3 weeks ago, when Adrian had abruptly pulled away. No more late nights together, no more heated glances, just cold professional distance that felt like winter frost across her skin. When Lena had finally worked up the courage to ask what changed, he'd looked at her with eyes like ice. The contract expires in 6 weeks. I'm simply honoring our original terms. No emotional complications. Isn't that what we agreed? She'd wanted to scream that their original terms had died the first time he'd kissed her like she was oxygen. Instead, she'd nodded and retreated to her suite, heart cracking in her chest. Now, standing in her bathroom with a positive pregnancy test in her trembling hands, Lena understood that emotional complications had just become the least of her problems. She was pregnant with Adrian Volkov's child. The man who'd made it crystal clear their marriage was ending in 6 weeks. The man who ran an empire built on violence and secrets. The man who'd explicitly stated he wanted no emotional entanglements. "Oh God," she whispered to her reflection, "what am I going to do?" The woman staring back at her looked terrified, young, trapped. Lena squared her shoulders. No, she'd survived worse than this. She'd survived foster care, poverty, loneliness. She'd survived making herself invisible for 26 years. She could survive this too. The plan formed quickly in her mind. She had 6 weeks until the divorce. She'd hide the pregnancy until then, take her money, and disappear. Adrian would never need to know. She'd raise the baby alone, far from his dangerous world. It was the only solution that didn't end in disaster. Lena wrapped the pregnancy test in tissue and buried it deep in the bathroom trash. She'd dispose of it tomorrow, where no one would find it. For now, she needed to pull herself together and face another day of pretending her heart wasn't shattering. She didn't know that across the penthouse, Adrian sat in his study with divorce papers spread across his desk, papers he'd been staring at for 3 hours without signing. She didn't know that he'd pulled away because his feelings for her had become too intense, too consuming, too dangerous for a man in his position. She didn't know that enemies were already moving against them both, mistaking her for something she wasn't, Adrian Volkov's weakness, and she definitely didn't know that in 72 hours, everything she thought she understood about survival would be shattered by bullets and blood and a truth that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Lena woke to unusual sounds from the main living area. Voices. Multiple voices, sharp and urgent. She pulled on a robe and crept to her door, listening. Situation is contained, but there will be questions. A male voice she didn't recognize. Then make sure those questions don't find answers. Adrian's response was cold as winter. What about the girl? Silence. Then, what about her? She's a liability. When this gets out, Lena stays out of this. The words cracked like a whip. She knows nothing. She remains irrelevant to the situation. Are we clear? Adrian, if they think she's involved, I said she's irrelevant. Make them understand that. Lena's blood ran cold. What situation? What did people think she was involved in? She retreated silently to her room, heart hammering. Whatever was happening in Adrian's world, she wanted no part of it. 6 weeks. She just had to stay invisible for 6 more weeks. But fate, as she was about to learn, didn't care about her plans. At 10 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Lena Carter? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. Speaking. This is Detective Sarah Reeves with the Major Crimes Unit. I need you to come to the precinct to answer some questions regarding financial irregularities associated with Volkov Industries. Lena's mouth went dry. I don't work for Volkov Industries. But you are married to Adrian Volkov. That's... She stopped. Their marriage was supposed to be secret. How did the police know? I don't understand what this is about. That's what we're trying to determine, Mrs. Volkov. Will you come voluntarily, or do we need to make this official? The threat was clear. I'll come, Lena heard herself say. 2 hours later, she sat in an interrogation room staring at bank statements that showed her name, on accounts containing millions of dollars in suspicious transfers. I've never seen these accounts before, she protested. I didn't open these. But this is your signature? Detective Reeves pushed a document across the table. Lena stared at the elegant signature that looked exactly like hers. I didn't sign this. Mrs. Volkov, someone has been systematically moving money out of Volkov Industries using your credentials. $17 million over the past 6 months. Either you're involved or someone is framing you. Which is it? Framing me. The answer came instantly. I'm a nurse's aide. I don't even understand how these financial systems work. But you understand how marriage to Adrian Volkov works. Detective Reeves leaned forward. Convenient timing, isn't it? Marry the man, gain access to his systems, steal his money. Classic con. That's not... I didn't... Lena's voice broke. I'm not stealing anything. Then why did you marry him? The truth would sound even worse than the lie they already believed. Lena closed her eyes. I want a lawyer. Smart choice. You're going to need one. They released her 4 hours later with instructions not to leave the city. Lena stumbled onto the street, head spinning, and found Adrian's driver waiting. Mr. Volkov requests your immediate presence, the man said flatly. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. 20 minutes later, Lena stood in Adrian's study while he sat behind his desk like a king on a throne, expression carved from ice. Explain, he said without preamble. Why the police believe you've stolen $17 million from me. I didn't. I know you didn't. He cut her off. But someone went to considerable trouble to make it look like you did. Who have you talked to? Who have you told about our arrangement? No one. Adrian, I don't understand what's happening. He stood, circling the desk with predatory grace. What's happening is that someone is using you to hurt me. They've set you up as the thief, which means when I retaliate, you become collateral damage. Retaliate against who? That's what I'm going to find out. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Until I do, you're in danger. Serious danger. Do you understand? Lena's hand unconsciously moved to her stomach before she caught herself, but Adrian's eyes tracked the movement, sharp as a hawk. Are you hurt? His voice softened fractionally. Did they hurt you at the precinct? No, I'm fine. You're not fine. You're pale and shaking. His hand lifted toward her face, then dropped. Pack a bag. You're moving to the safe house. Adrian, this isn't negotiable, Lena. Someone wants you dead or in prison, and I won't allow either outcome. Pack. Now. The authority in his voice was absolute. Lena found herself moving before conscious thought caught up. In her suite, she threw clothes into a bag with trembling hands. This was spiraling out of control. In 6 weeks, she was supposed to walk away from this marriage with money and freedom. Now she was being framed for theft, hunted by unknown enemies, and pregnant with the child of the most dangerous man in the city. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. The text message made her blood freeze. You think he'll protect you? You're just a pawn in a much bigger game. Disappear while you still can. A friend. Lena stared at the words, heart hammering. Should she run? Take this warning and vanish into the night? But where would she go with no money, no resources, and a baby on the way? Before she could decide, Adrian appeared in her doorway. Ready? She nodded, pocketing her phone. As they descended to the waiting car, Lena caught Adrian's reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. His expression was murderous, jaw clenched, eyes burning with barely controlled rage. Whatever was coming, it was going to be brutal. And she was right in the center of it. The safe house turned out to be a fortress masquerading as a luxury apartment. Located in a nondescript building in Brooklyn, the penthouse suite featured bulletproof windows, reinforced doors, and enough security equipment to guard a small nation. 2 armed men stood sentry in the hallway. Cameras monitored every entrance. You'll stay here until this is resolved, Adrian said, depositing her bag in the master bedroom. My men will guard you 24 hours. You go nowhere without an escort. I have to work. You're taking a leave of absence. I've already arranged it. Lena bristled. You can't just rearrange my entire life. I can when your life is in danger. He turned to face her fully, and the raw intensity in his eyes stole her breath. Someone is trying to hurt you to get to me. I won't let that happen. Why do you even care? In 6 weeks we're done. Divorced. You made it clear I was a mistake you regretted. The words came out sharper than she intended, edged with all the hurt she'd been swallowing for 3 weeks. Adrian went very still. Is that what you think? That you were a mistake? What else am I supposed to think? You've barely looked at me since... She stopped, unwilling to finish that sentence. Since I touched you last? Adrian crossed the space between them in 2 strides. Since I had you in my bed and realized I couldn't let you go? Since I understood that keeping you was more dangerous than losing you? Lena's breath caught. What? You think I pulled away because I regretted you? His laugh was bitter. I pulled away because I was 3 seconds from tearing up those divorce papers and keeping you forever. And that terrified me more than anything in my life. Her heart stuttered. Adrian, men in my world don't have weaknesses, Lena. They don't have soft spots. And you... His hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness. You became my biggest weakness the moment you walked into that hospital and looked at me like I was just a man instead of a monster. I never thought you were a monster. Then you weren't paying attention. His thumb traced her lower lip. But that's what made you dangerous. You saw me and didn't flinch. You challenged me, made me want things I have no right to want. Like what? Like mornings, futures, a life that's more than blood and business. His forehead touched hers. Like you, every morning, every night, forever. Lena's eyes burned with unshed tears. The divorce, I never signed the papers. The confession came out rough. I've been staring at them for weeks and I can't make myself sign because ending this marriage means losing you and that's not something I'm prepared to do. But you said, I said a lot of things I didn't mean because I was trying to protect you from this exact situation, from being dragged into my world and painted as a target. His hands framed her face. I failed, and now you're in danger anyway. So what do? We survive. We find who's behind this and we eliminate the threat. And then, his eyes searched hers. Then we decide what happens next. Together. Lena knew she should tell him about the pregnancy, right now, this moment. But the words stuck in her throat. Because what if this protection, this sudden declaration, was just about keeping his assets safe? What if knowing about the baby changed everything? She needed more time, needed to understand what this really was before she revealed her final secret. Together, she agreed softly. Adrian kissed her then, slow and deep and achingly tender. When he finally pulled back, his eyes held promises and threats in equal measure. I have to go. There are people I need to question about these accounts, but I'll have my men stationed outside. You don't open this door for anyone except me. Understood? Understood. He left with visible reluctance, and Lana found herself alone in the silent apartment. She pulled out her phone, staring at the warning text. Disappear while you still can. Who had sent this? An enemy? An ally? And more importantly, should she take the advice? Her hand moved to her stomach, where new life grew in secret. Whatever she decided, it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting the tiny spark of possibility growing inside her, about surviving long enough to give her child a chance at the life she'd never had. Lena walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, someone wanted her destroyed. And the only thing standing between her and oblivion was a man who claimed she was his greatest weakness. The question was whether that would be enough to save them both, or whether it would be the very thing that destroyed them. Hours passed in tense silence. Lena tried to sleep but found herself pacing instead, mind spinning with possibilities and fears. Who would frame her? Why? What did they gain from destroying Adrian's trust in her? At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another text. Check the news, see what your husband really is. Then ask yourself if you want to raise a child in his world. Lena's blood turned to ice. They knew. Somehow, they knew about the pregnancy. With shaking hands, she opened a news browser and searched Adrian's name. The headlines made her stomach drop. Volkov Industries under investigation for money laundering. Adrian Volkov, businessman or crime lord? Federal prosecutors build RICO case against suspected mafia operations. She clicked through article after article, each one painting a picture of the man she'd married as something far darker than she'd imagined. Money laundering, racketeering, suspected ties to organized crime, witnesses who'd disappeared, prosecutors who'd suddenly dropped cases. The Adrian Volkov described in these articles wasn't just a powerful businessman with questionable associates. He was a crime boss, a genuine, legitimate mafia leader. And she'd married him, slept with him, fallen for him. She was carrying his child. Oh, God, Lena whispered, sinking onto the couch. What have I done? A sound from the hallway made her freeze. Not Adrian's footsteps. Heavier. Multiple people. Then, clear the hall. Move fast. Shouting. Gunfire. Lena's scream caught in her throat as the apartment door exploded inward. 3 men in tactical gear stormed inside, weapons raised. Lena Carter, you're coming with us. Who are you? She scrambled backward. Friends who are saving your life. We have maybe 90 seconds before Volkov's reinforcements arrive. Move now or die here. More gunfire erupted from the hallway. One of Adrian's guards stumbled through the door, bleeding. Run, he gasped at Lena. There... A bullet cut off his words. Lena bolted. She ran for the bedroom, desperate for a lock, a weapon, anything. Strong hands grabbed her from behind. Sorry about this, a voice said, but you're too valuable to leave behind. Something sharp pricked her neck. The world tilted sideways. Lena's last conscious thought was of the baby, their baby, and whether she'd live long enough to tell Adrian the truth. Then darkness swallowed everything. When she woke, everything hurt. Lena opened her eyes to concrete walls and dim fluorescent lighting. She was zip-tied to a metal chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Blood crusted on her temple where she'd hit something during the kidnapping. She's awake. A woman stepped into view, elegant, blonde, probably 40. She wore a Chanel suit and smiled like a shark. Lena Carter. Finally, we meet. I'm Katerina Volkov. Lena's mind raced. Volkov. You're related to Adrian? His father's second wife, which makes me nothing, according to Adrian. He inherited everything when his father died. The business, the empire, the power. left me with scraps and humiliation. Katerina's smile turned vicious. But that's about to change. What do you want? Revenge. Justice. What's owed to me? Katerina circled the chair like a predator. Adrian destroyed my life, took everything that should have been mine, so I'm going to destroy his life in return. And you, my dear, are the key to doing exactly that. I don't mean anything to him. We're just what? A contract marriage that was supposed to end weeks ago? Except he never signed the divorce papers. Never could quite let you go. Katerina laughed. Oh, he tried to hide it, but I've been watching. I know how he looks at you, how he touches you, how he loses his legendary control every time you're in danger. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. You're the one who framed me. Guilty. I needed everyone to believe you betrayed him. Needed the police, the feds, his enemies all to see you as a target. And when Adrian reacted by protecting you anyway, that told me everything I needed to know. Katerina leaned close. You're not just his wife. You're his weakness. And in our world, weaknesses get people killed. He'll come for me. I'm counting on it. That's the point. Katerina straightened. Adrian is going to walk into my trap trying to save you. And when he does, I'll destroy him. Take back everything he stole from me. Finally, get the justice I deserve. You're insane. I'm practical, just like your husband taught me to be. Katerina checked her watch. He should be here soon. I sent him your location 20 minutes ago, and Adrian Volkov never could resist playing the hero for his damsel in distress. Lena tested the zip ties binding her wrists. Too tight. No give. She needed to warn Adrian, needed to tell him this was a trap. But more than that, she needed to survive long enough to tell him about the baby. Because if she died here, he'd never know, never understand what they'd created together, never get the chance to decide what kind of father he wanted to be. Katerina, Lena said carefully, whatever Adrian did to you, whatever happened between you, killing me won't fix it. No, but it will hurt him, and that's enough. Katerina smiled. Besides, you're carrying his child. That makes you even more valuable than I thought. Lena's blood froze. How do you... I have sources everywhere, including your doctor's office. Did you really think you could hide a pregnancy from people who've been watching your every move? Terror clawed at Lena's throat. Please, the baby? We'll die with you when this warehouse goes up in flames with Adrian inside. A tragic murder-suicide. Devastated husband kills unfaithful wife, then himself. The papers will eat it up. No one will believe that. They will when they see the evidence I've planted. The affair you were having, the money you stole, the text messages planning to run away together. Katerina's expression turned cold. I've spent 6 months building this narrative. It's perfect. Outside, the sound of vehicles approaching. Katerina's smile widened. Right on time. Places everyone. Men emerged from the shadows, at least a dozen, all heavily armed. This wasn't a kidnapping anymore. It was an execution waiting to happen, and Lena was helpless to stop it. The warehouse door exploded inward with a force that shook dust from the rafters. Adrian Volkov stepped through the smoke like an avenging angel, flanked by 6 men carrying enough firepower to start a war. His suit was immaculate despite the violence, his expression carved from pure rage. His eyes found Lena instantly across the cavernous space. Then they found the guns pointed at her head. Let her go, Katerina. His voice was arctic calm, the kind of calm that preceded absolute destruction. This is between us. Katerina laughed, the sound echoing off concrete walls. Oh, Adrian, still so predictable, still so weak when it comes to protecting what's yours. I won't ask again, and I won't comply. You see, I've waited 6 years for this moment. 6 years of watching you rule an empire that should have been mine. 6 years of being dismissed as your father's trophy wife while you took everything. She pressed the barrel of her gun against Lena's temple. Now you get to watch me take something from you. Adrian's jaw clenched, the only visible sign of emotion. You want money? Territory? Name your price. I want you destroyed. I want you to feel what I felt. Powerless, humiliated, stripped of everything that matters. Katerina's finger tightened on the trigger, starting with her. Wait. The word cracked like a gunshot. Adrian's hands rose slowly, a gesture of surrender that looked wrong on a man who never yielded to anyone. If you want revenge, take it, Shoot me. Let her walk out of here first, and I'm yours. Adrian, no. Lena's protest died when Katerina pressed the gun harder against her skull. Quiet. The adults are negotiating. Katerina's eyes never left Adrian. You'd really trade yourself for her? This contract bride you were going to divorce in 6 weeks? Yes. No hesitation, no doubt. Just absolute certainty. Why? She's nobody. A nurse's aide you paid to play house. What makes her worth dying for? Adrian's gaze locked onto Lena's, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. Because she's everything. Because from the moment she looked at me like I was worth saving instead of running from me like everyone else, I was lost. Because I love her. Lena's heart stopped. He'd never said those words before, never even hinted at them. And now he was saying them in a warehouse surrounded by enemies, offering his life for hers. How touching. Katerina's smile turned vicious. Too bad love makes you stupid, Adrian. Did you really think I'd let either of you walk out of here alive? She pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, but the bullet never reached Lena. One of Adrian's men, the massive one called Victor, tackled Katerina from the side, sending her shot wild. It buried itself in concrete inches from Lena's chair. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Adrian's men engaged Katerina's forces in a brutal firefight that turned the warehouse into a war zone. Bullets pinged off metal, shattered windows, tore through wooden crates. Adrian moved like liquid death, his weapon tracking targets with lethal precision. Men dropped around him, but he never stopped advancing toward Lena. Cover! He roared at his team, laying down suppressing fire. Someone cut the zip ties binding Lena's wrists. She stumbled to her feet, head spinning, ears ringing from the gunfire. Stay low! Adrian reached her in 3 strides, his body immediately shielding hers. Can you run? I think so. Then run, now! He half carried, half dragged her toward a side exit, his gun barking orders at anyone who tried to stop them. Behind them, Victor and the others held the line, trading bullets with Katerina's forces. They burst through a metal door into an alley choked with garbage and shadows. The car's 2 blocks north, Adrian said, already pulling her forward. We get there, we're safe. They made it half a block before the SUV screeched around the corner, cutting off their escape. 4 men poured out, weapons raised. Adrian put Lena behind him with one arm, his gun tracking between targets. Go back. Through the warehouse. Find Victor. I'm not leaving you. Lena, if you don't run right now, we both die. Please. His voice broke on that last word. Please, just run. She wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight beside him. But the baby. She had to think about the baby. Lena ran. Behind her, gunfire exploded again. She heard Adrian shout, the screech of tires, the chaos of combat. Then strong hands grabbed her from a doorway, yanking her inside. Lena screamed, thrashing against her captor. Easy! It's me! Marcus, one of Adrian's men, held up his hands. Boss sent me to make sure you got out. Adrian is buying you time. Come on. There's a tunnel system under these buildings. Old subway maintenance access. We can use it to get clear. I'm not leaving him. You are if you want to live. Marcus grabbed her arm, his expression grim. Ma'am, with respect, he'll kill me himself if I let anything happen to you. So move. They descended into darkness, Marcus's flashlight cutting through the gloom. The tunnels smelled like rot and rust, water dripping from somewhere unseen. Lena's mind raced. Adrian was still up there, fighting, bleeding, dying, maybe. And she'd run. How far? She gasped. 1/4 mile to the exit, then we've got a safe vehicle waiting. They emerged in a parking garage 3 blocks from the warehouse. True to Marcus's word, a nondescript sedan waited with engine running. Get in the back, stay down. Lena obeyed, heart hammering. As Marcus pulled into traffic, she risked a glance through the rear window. Smoke rose from the warehouse district. Sirens wailed in the distance. Is he alive? She whispered. Boss? Takes more than Katerina's amateurs to kill Adrian Volkov. Marcus's confidence didn't quite reach his eyes. He'll make it out. He always does. But Lena heard the doubt beneath those words, and she understood with sick certainty that Adrian had traded his safety for hers, had put himself in lethal danger to buy her escape, had said he loved her, then potentially died to prove it. The safe house Marcus brought her to was different from the last one. A brownstone in Queens, anonymous and fortified. More guards waited inside, grim-faced men who nodded at Marcus and immediately took defensive positions. "What now?" Lena asked. "Now we wait for the boss to check in." Marcus handed her a phone. "He'll call this number when he's clear. Until then, you stay here. Don't go near the windows, don't answer the door, don't use your personal phone." "How long?" "As long as it takes." Hours crawled past with excruciating slowness. Lena paced the small living room, jumping at every sound. Her mind conjured 1,000 terrible scenarios. Adrian shot, Adrian captured, Adrian bleeding out in some alley while she sat here safe and useless. She'd never told him about the baby. The thought kept circling back, a knife twisting in her chest. If he died tonight, he'd die never knowing he was going to be a father. At 4 a.m., the phone finally rang. Lena lunged for it. "Hello?" "Lena." Adrian's voice was rough, strained, but alive. Wonderfully, impossibly alive. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine. Are you? Where are you?" "Somewhere safe. Can't talk long. Just needed to hear your voice." A pause. "I meant what I said. In the warehouse. Every word." Tears burned Lena's eyes. "I know. When this is over, when Katerina's dealt with and you're truly safe, we need to talk. About us. About what comes next. Adrian, there's something I need to tell you." "I know." His voice gentled. "I know about the baby, Lena." The world stopped spinning. "What?" she breathed. "Katerina made sure I knew. Part of her plan, use the pregnancy to make my feelings for you undeniable, then destroy us both." A bitter laugh. "She was right about one thing. The moment I knew you were carrying my child, every priority in my life rearranged itself. Nothing matters more than keeping you both safe." "You're not angry." "Angry? Lena, I'm terrified, overwhelmed, completely unprepared." A pause. "And more certain than I've ever been about anything that I want this. Want you. Want the future we could build together if we survive the night." "We'll survive," she said fiercely. "We have to. For the baby." "For the baby," he agreed. "And for us. I'm coming to get you as soon as—" Gunfire cracked through the phone connection. Adrian cursed. "I have to go. Stay where you are. Trust Marcus. I'll come for you as soon as I can." "Adrian." The line went dead. Lena stared at the phone, heart in her throat. He knew. He knew about the baby, and he wanted them both. Now she just had to stay alive long enough for them to have that future. The attack came at dawn. Lena was dozing fitfully on the couch when Marcus suddenly shouted, "Incoming!" Windows shattered. Smoke canisters crashed through, filling the brownstone with choking gas. "Upstairs! Now!" Marcus fired at shadows outside, his weapon's muzzle flash cutting through the haze. Lena ran for the stairs, coughing, eyes streaming. Behind her, the guards engaged with unseen attackers. The firefight was brief and brutal. 3 shots, 2 thuds, then silence. "Marcus?" she called. No answer. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Deliberate. Lena stumbled into a bedroom, slamming and locking the door. Her hands scrabbled for anything that could be a weapon, a lamp, a chair, anything. The door exploded inward. 2 men in tactical gear entered, weapons raised. "Lena Carter, you're coming with us. Again." "Who are you?" She backed against the wall, the lamp raised like a club. "Federal agents. You're wanted for questioning in connection with the Volkov investigation." One of them pulled out handcuffs. "You can come quietly, or—" The window behind Lena exploded. Adrian swung through on a rope, glass and wood frame disintegrating around him. He hit the floor in a crouch, weapon already tracking to the 2 men. "Back away from her," he said quietly. "Now." "Adrian Volkov, you're under arrest." "I said back away." The menace in his voice could have carved stone. The 2 agents hesitated, clearly reevaluating their odds against a man who looked like violence personified. "This doesn't have to get messy," one ventured. "We just need to bring her in for—" Adrian shot the gun out of his hand. "Next one goes through your knee, then your partner's, Then anywhere else I feel like putting bullets until you understand that she's not going anywhere with you. He stepped between Lena and the agents, a human shield. You want her, you go through me. And I promise you won't survive the attempt. The agents exchanged glances. Whatever they'd been briefed on, Adrian Volkov clearly hadn't prepared them for the reality. This isn't over, one said, backing toward the door. We'll be back with warrants, with backup. Looking forward to it. Adrian waited until they'd retreated down the stairs before turning to Lena. You okay? She threw her arms around him, not caring about the blood on his suit or the weapons still holstered at his sides. I thought you were dead. Takes more than that. He held her tight, face buried in her hair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. Katerina? Escaped in the chaos, but she won't get far. I have every resource at my disposal hunting her down. He pulled back, hands framing her face. We need to disappear for a while. Let me clean up this mess without you being in the crossfire. Can you do that? Can you trust me to handle this? I trust you. The words came without hesitation. But where would we go? Somewhere safe. Somewhere Katerina's people and the feds can't find you. His hand moved to her stomach, resting there with devastating gentleness. Somewhere our baby can grow without bullets flying overhead. Lena covered his hand with hers. How did you know? About the pregnancy. I suspected for weeks. You were tired all the time, nauseous in the mornings, avoided wine at dinner. A ghost of a smile. I know every detail of your patterns, Lena. I notice when things change. Were you ever going to say anything? I was waiting for you to tell me. Figured you had your reasons for keeping it quiet. His eyes searched hers. Were you planning to raise our child alone? I didn't know what you wanted, what this was between us. The contract said, the contract can burn. He kissed her softly. I told you in that warehouse. You're everything to me. That includes whatever we've created together. I want this baby. Want you. Want the life we could build if you'll have me. Adrian, your world is violence and danger, and I know. And I'm going to change that. His voice turned hard with conviction. I've been planning it for months. Legitimate businesses to replace the illegal ones. Partnerships that don't require bloodshed. A way out of this life that doesn't get me killed. He pressed his forehead to hers. I want to be a father our child can be proud of. A husband you deserve, but I need time to make that transition. And I need you safe while I do it. Lena felt tears tracking down her cheeks. Where? Private island off the coast of Greece. One of my legitimate holdings. Resort property I've been developing. Totally isolated, impossible to reach without my knowledge. He brushed away her tears with his thumbs. You'd be protected, comfortable, safe until I've neutralized the threats and cleaned up my empire. How long? Weeks, maybe months. However long it takes to make sure you can come back without danger following you. And you? I'll visit when I can, when it's safe. His jaw clenched. I won't lie to you. The next few months are going to be brutal. Katerina has allies, enemies who'll use this chaos to make moves against me. I have to be here to hold my territory and dismantle the threats. So you're asking me to run while you stay and fight. I'm asking you to protect our child while I make the world safe enough for us to build a life together. His eyes held hers with raw intensity. I know I have no right to ask. Know you could walk away from this mess and I'd have earned it. But if there's any part of you that believes in us, in what we could be, I'm begging you to give me the time to make this right. Lena thought about the warehouse, the gunfire, the blood. She thought about the baby growing inside her, about the future they could have if Adrian succeeded in transforming his empire. She thought about the man who'd said he loved her, then proved it by walking into a trap to save her life. Okay, she whispered, I'll go. But you have to promise me something. Anything. You survive this. Whatever it takes. Whoever you have to fight. You survive and come back to us. I promise. He sealed it with a kiss that tasted like hope and desperation. I'll find you when it's safe. And when I do, we're going to have that wedding you deserve. The real one. Not a courthouse transaction, but a celebration of everything we survived to be together. I'll hold you to that. Please do. He helped her to her feet. We need to move. Helicopters waiting to take you to a private airfield. From there, chartered jet to Athens, then boat to the island. My people there have instructions to give you anything you need. How long before you can visit? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'll come as soon as the immediate threats are contained. His hand rested on her stomach again. Take care of our baby. And yourself. You take care of yourself too. This child needs a father. They'll have one. I swear it. The helicopter ride was surreal, lifting above the burning city as dawn broke pink and gold across the skyline. Lena watched New York shrink beneath them, leaving behind the chaos and violence for an uncertain future on a distant island. But Adrian's words echoed in her mind. His promise. His love. For the first time in her life, Lena Carter was running toward something instead of away. And she prayed that what she was running toward would be waiting for her at the end. The island appeared like a jewel in turquoise waters, white sand beaches, lush vegetation, a sprawling villa perched on the cliffs. The yacht deposited Lena at a private dock where a woman in her 50s waited with a warm smile. Mrs. Volkov, welcome. I'm Helena, the estate manager. Mr. Volkov asked me to ensure you have everything you need during your stay. Thank you. Lena followed her up winding stone steps toward the villa. How long have you worked for Adrian? 15 years. I knew him when he was barely more than a boy taking over his father's empire. Helena's expression softened. He's a good man beneath the reputation. You're good for him. I can tell. How? Because he's never sent anyone here before. This island is his sanctuary, the one place he comes when the world gets too heavy. Sharing it means you matter. The villa was stunning. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing ocean views. A bedroom suite larger than Lena's entire childhood apartment. A kitchen stocked with everything imaginable. You'll be safe here, Helena assured her. Security patrols the perimeter 24 hours. No one comes or goes without Mr. Volkov's explicit authorization. It's beautiful. It's yours for as long as you need it. That night, alone in the massive bed, Lena placed her hand on her still flat stomach and whispered to the life growing inside her. We made it. We're safe. Your father's fighting to make the world safe for us. And when he's done, we're going to be a family. She fell asleep with that promise warming her chest and dreamed of a future where bullets and blood were distant memories replaced by laughter and love and the family she'd always wanted but never dared to hope for. Miles away, in a New York penthouse stained with violence, Adrian Volkov stood at his window, staring at the city he ruled. Katerina was still out there. The feds were building a case. Enemies circled like sharks scenting blood. But none of it mattered as much as the woman carrying his child on a distant island. He'd promised to survive this. Promised to come back to them. Adrian Volkov always kept his promises, no matter how much blood it cost. 3 weeks passed in paradise that felt more like purgatory. Lena woke each morning to turquoise waters and golden sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains, but beauty couldn't erase the gnawing worry that had taken up permanent residence in her chest. Adrian called every few days, brief conversations where he assured her everything was under control, that he was making progress, that she should focus on taking care of herself and the baby. But Lena heard what he didn't say in the pauses between words. She heard exhaustion, strain, the weight of a war being fought thousands of miles away while she sat in safety, powerless to help. Helena had become her unlikely companion, the older woman's steady presence a comfort during the long, anxious days. They took walks along the beach, prepared meals together in the villa's sprawling kitchen, talked about everything except the violence Lena had escaped. You're showing, Helena observed one morning as Lena emerged in a loose sundress. Just barely, but it's there. Lena's hand moved automatically to her stomach, where a small bump had begun to curve beneath her palm. 14 weeks now. The nausea finally stopped, thank heavens. Have you thought about names? Not yet. Feels like tempting fate. Lena stared out at the ocean. Like if I start planning too much, something will go wrong. He'll come back to you, Helena said quietly. I've known Adrian since he was 22 years old. I've never seen him care about anything the way he cares about you. That kind of love doesn't surrender easily. I just wish I could do something, instead of sitting here safe while he's... She stopped, throat tightening. You are doing something. You're protecting his child. giving him a reason to survive whatever hell he's walking through. Helena squeezed her shoulder. That's not nothing. The phone call came that afternoon, not Adrian's usual evening check-in, but midday, and from a number Lena didn't recognize. Her heart lurched as she answered. Hello? Lena, it's Victor. Adrian's head of security sounded grim. I need you to stay calm and listen carefully. Ice flooded her veins. What happened? Is Adrian... He's alive, but there's been a development. Katerina made her move. What kind of move? She orchestrated a coordinated attack, hit 3 of our warehouses simultaneously, killed 17 of our people. Then she leaked evidence to the FBI implicating Adrian in everything from money laundering to murder. Victor's voice tightened. The feds raided his office this morning, seized all his assets, froze his accounts. There's a federal warrant out for his arrest. Lena sank onto the nearest chair, head spinning. Where is he? Underground, moving between safe houses. But Lena, it gets worse. How could it possibly get worse? Katerina knows about the island. She's got your location. The world tilted sideways. How? We're still figuring that out. But she sent a message directly to Adrian, surrender himself to her, or she sends people to the island to finish what she started. A pause. You need to leave. Now. We've got an extraction team en route. ETA 40 minutes. Pack only essentials and be ready. Victor, if Adrian surrenders to her, he won't. But he also won't let you stay there unprotected. The extraction team will bring you to a new location. Somewhere even Katerina's reach can't find. Where? Boss will explain when he sees you. Just be ready when the team arrives. The line went dead. Lena stood frozen for 3 heartbeats, mind racing. Then training from her years as a nurse kicked in, assess the situation, prioritize, move. She found Helena in the kitchen. We need to leave, now. Katerina knows we're here. To her credit, Helena didn't waste time with questions. I'll alert the security team. You pack. 5 minutes. Lena threw clothes, toiletries, and a few precious items into a bag with shaking hands. The photo of her and Adrian from the night of their courthouse wedding, the burner phone he'd given her, the prenatal vitamins Helena had procured from the mainland. Outside, helicopter rotors began to thump. Too soon. The extraction team wasn't supposed to arrive for 30 more minutes. Lena's blood turned to ice. She ran to the window and saw not the sleek black helicopter she'd arrived in, but a military-style transport painted in desert camouflage. Men rappelled down before it even fully landed, moving with military precision. Helena! Lena screamed. They're here! Helena burst into the room, took one look out the window, and grabbed Lena's arm. Back exit. Through the cliffs. There's a boat. Gunfire shattered the villa's front windows. Go! Helena shoved Lena toward the bedroom's balcony. I'll buy you time. I'm not leaving you sit. That baby needs you alive more than I do. Move! Lena ran. She burst onto the balcony, scrambled over the railing, and dropped into the lush garden below. Pain shot through her ankle, but she ignored it, running for the path Helena had shown her weeks ago. A narrow trail carved into the cliff face, leading down to a hidden cove where a small motorboat was moored. Behind her, the villa erupted in chaos. More gunfire. Shouting. The heavy percussion of flashbangs. Lena stumbled down the treacherous path, loose rocks sliding beneath her feet. One hand clutched her stomach protectively, while the other grasped at roots and stone for balance. The cove appeared below, water glittering in the afternoon sun. Almost there. Almost safe. Going somewhere, Mrs. Volkov? Lena spun. Katerina stood 10 feet away, gun leveled at Lena's chest. She wore tactical gear instead of Chanel now, blonde hair pulled back, face hard with triumph. It's over, Katerina said. Adrian's empire is crumbling. The feds will arrest him within 48 hours, and you're going to die exactly where you stand along with his bastard child. You won't get away with this. Lena's voice shook but held. Adrian will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Let him try. By the time he finds what's left of you, I'll be long gone with enough of his money to build my own empire. Katerina's smile was vicious. Any last words? Yeah. Lena's hand closed around a rock behind her back. Duck! She threw herself sideways as the crack of a rifle shot split the air. Katerina jerked backward. a red bloom spreading across her shoulder. She fell hard, gun skittering across the rocks. Lena looked up to see Victor on the cliff above, rifle to his shoulder, two more shooters flanking him. "Stay down," he shouted. Katerina's men emerged from the tree line, weapons blazing. Victor's team returned fire in a brutal exchange that sent Lena scrambling behind a boulder, heart hammering against her ribs. Through the chaos, she saw Katerina crawling toward her fallen weapon, leaving a trail of blood across the white stone. Their eyes met. For one frozen moment, Lena saw past the hatred and madness to the desperate woman beneath, someone who'd lost everything and chose revenge over survival. Then Katerina lunged for the gun. Lena moved on pure instinct, kicking the weapon over the cliff edge before Katerina could reach it. It tumbled into the surf below. "You bitch!" Katerina snarled, blood-slicked hand grabbing for Lena's throat. They grappled at the cliff's edge. Katerina's superior size and training offset by her injury. Lena fought with the desperation of a mother protecting her unborn child, nails raking, knees striking, teeth bared. "Give me one reason," Katerina gasped, hand closing around a rock. "Why I shouldn't bash your skull in right now." "Because if you kill me, you get nothing." Lena's voice came out steady despite her terror. "But if you surrender, I'll convince Adrian to let you walk away. Money, new identity, a life somewhere far from here. You think I believe that? I think you're bleeding out and your people are losing. I think your only chance at survival is trusting that I'm not like you, that I don't need revenge. I just want this to end." Katerina's eyes searched hers, calculating odds, measuring sincerity. The rock in her hand trembled. Then Victor was there, weapon pressed to Katerina's temple. "Drop it, now!" The rock fell from nerveless fingers. "It's over, Katerina," Victor said quietly. "Your men are down. The feds are 20 minutes out. You've got one choice, come quietly, and maybe live to see trial, or die right here." For a long moment, Katerina didn't move. Then she slumped, all the fight draining out of her. "He wins. Even now, he wins." "No," Lena said, struggling to her feet. "Nobody wins this. We all just survive it." Victor's men secured Katerina with zip ties and field bandages before hauling her up the cliff path. The villa was a smoking ruin, windows shattered, bullet holes stitching the pristine white walls. Helena sat on the terrace steps, blood streaking her temple, but eyes sharp and alert. "You're alive," Lena breathed, dropping to her knees beside the older woman. "Takes more than Katerina's thugs to kill me. I worked for Adrian's father, survived far worse than this." Helena squeezed her hand. "The baby?" "Safe. We're both safe." Sirens wailed in the distance. The Greek authorities summoned by the gunfire. "We need to leave before they arrive," Victor said. "Our extraction bird is 3 minutes out. We grab it and disappear before this becomes an international incident." Lena helped Helena to her feet as the legitimate rescue helicopter appeared on the horizon, sleek and black, Adrian's mark of a raven painted on the side. As they lifted away from the burning island, Lena watched Katerina being loaded into a separate aircraft by Victor's men. The woman who'd tried to destroy them looked small now, broken, defeated. Lena felt no triumph, only exhaustion and relief that it was finally over. "Where are we going?" she asked Victor. "New York. Boss wants you brought to him directly." Victor's expression softened fractionally. "He's been out of his mind since we lost contact with the island. Nearly blew his cover trying to get to you himself." "Is he safe?" "For now. The raid on his office turned up nothing. He'd already moved everything important months ago. The warrant will get thrown out within 48 hours. And with Katerina in custody, her entire operation is collapsing." Victor allowed himself a small smile. "It's over. Finally over." Lena placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the small life inside her flutter for the first time, a tiny movement like butterfly wings. "Did you feel that?" she whispered to the baby. "That's what hope feels like." The helicopter touched down on a Manhattan rooftop as evening painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. Lena's legs shook as she stepped onto the concrete, exhaustion finally catching up with the adrenaline crash. Victor steadied her. "Easy. You've been through hell today. I just want to see him. Where is he?" "Here." Adrian emerged from the rooftop access door, and the sight of him nearly brought Lena to her knees. He looked like he'd aged 5 years and 3 weeks. New lines carved around his eyes, shadows beneath them, a barely healed cut across his cheekbone. His suit was rumpled, tie loose, hair disheveled, but his eyes, when they found her, burned with such raw relief and love that Lena's heart cracked open. They moved simultaneously, closing the distance in a rush. Adrian caught her in his arms, lifting her off her feet, face buried in her hair. I thought I'd lost you. When Victor called and said Katerina had found the island, I thought, I'm here. We're both here. Lena pulled back enough to frame his face with her hands. It's over, isn't it? Katerina's caught. The feds have nothing. We survived. We survived. He kissed her fiercely, desperately, like he was trying to prove she was real. When he finally released her, his hand moved to her stomach, resting where their child grew. Both of you, thank heaven, both of you. 3 of us, technically, Lena said with a watery laugh. You, me, and Junior here. 3 of us, Adrian agreed, voice rough with emotion. My whole world standing right here. Victor cleared his throat diplomatically. Boss, we should move inside. The feds may be off your back, but there's still cleanup to handle. Give us a minute. Adrian's eyes never left Lena's face. Please. When they were alone on the rooftop with only the city lights and the gathering dusk as witnesses, Adrian sank to one knee. What are you doing? Lena whispered. Something I should have done weeks ago. He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket. I know we're already married. I know we started this as a transaction, but I want to do this right, Lena. Want to ask you properly. He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the dying light, a diamond surrounded by sapphires, the exact color of her eyes. I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things to build my empire. I've hurt people, made choices I can't take back. But you walked into my life and saw past all the darkness to something worth saving. You gave me a reason to want to be better, to build something legitimate instead of living in shadows, to imagine a future where I'm not just a monster in an expensive suit. His voice cracked. I love you, Lena Carter. I love the way you challenged me, the way you stood up to me that first night in the hospital, the way you kiss me like I'm worth choosing instead of running from, the way you're carrying our child with such fierce protectiveness, even though I dragged you into a nightmare. Tears streamed down Lena's face. I'm asking you to marry me again, not for a contract, not for convenience, but because I want to spend every morning of my life waking up beside you, because I want to build a family together, because you're my everything, and I can't imagine a future that doesn't have you in it. He looked up at her, this powerful man brought to his knees by love. Will you marry me? For real this time. Lena dropped to her knees in front of him, hands cupping his face. Yes. Yes to all of it. To you, to us, to this messy, complicated, beautiful life we're building together. Yes. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, like it had been made for her hand. Then he kissed her with all the desperate relief and fierce joy of a man who'd nearly lost everything and been given a second chance. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing through tears, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I have one more thing to tell you, he said, about the Empire, about what comes next. Okay. I'm out, completely out of the illegal operations. I've been working with federal prosecutors for 6 months, giving them everything on my competitors in exchange for immunity and protection. The warehouse raids, the money laundering charges, all of it was theater to make my exit look like a collapse instead of a carefully orchestrated handoff. Lena pulled back to stare at him. You've been working with the FBI? Since before I even knew about the baby, since I realized I wanted a future with you more than I wanted the Empire. His hands tightened on hers. Every illegal operation I ran is being transferred to federal control. They'll dismantle the worst of it and redirect the rest to legitimate channels. I keep my clean businesses, real estate, restaurants, investments, everything above board, nothing that gets you or our child targeted. That's why Katerina's evidence didn't stick, because you'd already given them everything. Exactly. She thought she was destroying me, but I'd already destroyed that version of myself. The man you married is different from the one who proposed this arrangement a year ago. You changed me, Lena, made me want to be someone our child could admire instead of fear. Lena's throat tightened with emotion. Who are you now? A man trying to be worthy of you. A father-to-be who's terrified and excited in equal measure. A husband who wants to give you the life you deserve. He stood, pulling her up with him. Come with me. There's something I want to show you. They took a private elevator down to a floor Lena had never visited, Adrian's personal office, now stripped of everything except blueprints and architectural renderings covering every surface. What is all this? She asked. The future? Adrian spread out the largest blueprint. Community centers in the neighborhoods where I used to run illegal operations. Job training programs. Addiction recovery centers. I'm using the money I made from darkness to build light. It won't erase what I did, but maybe it'll mean something. Lena studied the plans, seeing the scope of his vision. Buildings designed to help people like her, foster kids, struggling families, anyone who needed a hand up instead of exploitation. This is what you've been working on, she said softly. While I was on the island, this is why you couldn't visit. I needed to set it all in motion before Katerina's attack. Needed to make sure that even if I didn't survive, the money would still do good. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, hands splaying across her stomach. I want our child to grow up knowing their father built something worth being proud of. Not an empire of fear, but a legacy of hope. Lena turned in his arms, seeing the man she'd fallen in love with more clearly than ever. Not the crime boss or the dangerous stranger, but someone fighting to be better, to build better. When do we start? She asked. We? You think I'm going to let you do all this alone? I'm a nurse, Adrian. I know these communities. I know what they need. And I know how to make programs actually help instead of just looking good on paper. She smiled. Besides, you proposed to me for real. That means you get all of me, including my very strong opinions about community healthcare. Adrian laughed, the sound rich and genuine. I wouldn't have it any other way. They stood together in his office, surrounded by plans for a better future, and Lena felt the final pieces of her heart click into place. She'd started this journey as a woman running from her past, invisible and alone. Now she stood beside a man who saw her completely, loved her fiercely, and wanted to build something beautiful from the ashes of his former life. Their child would grow up in light instead of shadows, would know love instead of violence, would have parents who chose each other every single day, not because of a contract, but because what they'd found together was worth fighting for. When's the real wedding? Lena asked. Whenever you want, tomorrow, next month. I don't care as long as it ends with you as my wife in front of everyone who matters. Next month, Lena decided. That gives us time to plan something beautiful, something that celebrates what we survived to be together. Next month, Adrian agreed. And Lena? Yeah? Thank you. For seeing past what I was to what I could be, for giving me a reason to want more than power and fear, for loving me anyway. Thank you for choosing us, for walking away from everything you knew to build something better. She kissed him softly. For keeping your promise to survive and come back to me. Outside the office windows, the city glittered with a million lights, each one representing a life, a story, a second chance. Adrian and Lena stood at the center of their own second chance, hands clasped, future spreading before them like an unwritten page. The worst was behind them now, Katerina in custody, the empire transformed, the threats eliminated. What lay ahead was theirs to create together. And for the first time in both their lives, the future looked bright enough to believe in. The penthouse felt different now that danger no longer lurked in every shadow. Lena moved through the space that had once felt like a gilded cage, but now carried the warmth of home. Adrian had insisted she stay with him instead of returning to her old suite, and she hadn't argued. The bed they shared felt right in a way the separate rooms never had. His arm around her waist each night, his breath warm against her neck, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat a constant reassurance. 2 days after the proposal, Lena woke to find Adrian already dressed, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows with a phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, controlled, but she heard the steel beneath it. I don't care what the board thinks. The decision is final. We're closing the offshore accounts and transferring everything to Transparent Holdings. If they have a problem with that, they can resign. He hung up without waiting for a response and turned to find Lena watching him. Morning, he said, crossing to kiss her forehead. Did I wake you? No, well, maybe. What's happening with the board? Adrian's jaw tightened. Resistance. Half of them profited from the illegal operations. They're not thrilled about the transition to legitimate business only. Will they cause problems? They'll try. But I own controlling interest in every company that matters. They can complain all they want. The transformation is happening with or without their blessing. He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. How are you feeling? Any nausea? Not this morning, just hungry, Lena smiled. Junior apparently wants pancakes. Then pancakes it is. Adrian pulled out his phone, presumably to message his chef, but Lena stopped him. Actually, I was thinking we could make them ourselves. You know, like normal people. He looked at her like she'd suggested they fly to the moon. You want me to cook? Is that so hard to imagine? I haven't cooked anything since I was 16. I'm not sure I remember how. Then I'll teach you. Lena stood, pulling him toward the kitchen. Come on, our child should know their father can make breakfast without needing a staff of 12. The kitchen was a chef's dream. Marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, every tool imaginable. Adrian looked thoroughly out of place among the gleaming surfaces, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded, watching Lena measure flour with the careful attention he usually reserved for business negotiations. Okay, crack the eggs into this bowl, she instructed, handing him 3 eggs. He picked up the first egg like it might explode. Lena bit back a laugh. You've negotiated with crime lords and federal prosecutors, but an egg intimidates you? I just don't want to mess it up. It's scrambled pancakes, Adrian. Mess is part of the process. She guided his hand, showing him how to crack the egg cleanly. See? Not so scary. They worked together in comfortable silence, broken only by Lena's patient instructions. Adrian proved to be a surprisingly quick study once he relaxed, whisking the batter with the same precision he brought to everything else. When I was in foster care, Lena said quietly, pouring batter onto the griddle, there was this one house where the mom used to make pancakes every Saturday. It was the only place I ever felt like I was part of a real family, even if it was temporary. Adrian moved behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. What happened? They had to move for a job. Out of state. I got transferred to a new placement. She flipped a pancake, watching it bubble and brown. I used to think about those Saturday mornings, though, about what it felt like to belong somewhere. You belong here. His voice was rough against her ear. With me. With us. This is your home, Lena, for as long as you want it. She turned in his arms, pancake temporarily forgotten. Promise? I promise. You're not invisible anymore. Not disposable. Not temporary. You're mine, and I'm yours. And that's not changing. He kissed her softly. Now turn around before you burn our breakfast. She yelped and spun back to rescue the pancake, laughing as Adrian helped her flip it onto a plate. They ate at the kitchen island instead of the formal dining room, syrup dripping onto the marble, coffee steaming between them. It was domestic and simple and absolutely perfect. I could get used to this, Adrian admitted, stealing a bite from her plate. Good. Because once the baby comes, you're on permanent pancake duty. I'll be too tired for midnight feedings. Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability and wonder mixing with what looked like fear. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to be a mother. We'll figure it out together. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I pass on all the worst parts of myself? Lena set down her fork, reaching across to take his hand. The fact that you're worried about that tells me you'll be amazing. Bad fathers don't question themselves. They don't care enough to worry. I want to be the kind of father who teaches our kid to make pancakes, who goes to school plays and soccer games, who's there for bedtime stories instead of business meetings. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I want to be present in a way my father never was. Then you will be. You're already choosing us over the empire, already transforming everything to give our child a better world. That's not nothing, Adrian. I'm terrified I'm going to fail. Welcome to parenthood. I'm pretty sure that feeling never goes away. She squeezed his hand. But we're in this together. And that means when one of us is scared, the other one reminds them we're not alone. Adrian pulled her close, holding her like she was the only thing anchoring him to earth. How did I get so lucky? You didn't get lucky. You made a choice. To be better. To build something worth keeping. She pulled back to look at him. And I chose you right back. The moment was interrupted by Victor's arrival, the security chief's expression apologetic as he entered the kitchen. Sorry to disturb, boss, but we've got a situation. Adrian's entire demeanor shifted, the soft man who'd been making pancakes replaced by the calculating strategist in a heartbeat. What kind of situation? Katerina's lawyer is requesting a meeting. Says she has information critical to your continued safety, and she'll only share it with you directly. Absolutely not, Lena said immediately. It's a trap. Probably, Victor agreed, but she's in federal custody. Maximum security facility. She can't touch him there. What could she possibly have to say that matters now? Adrian's voice was cold. Her operation is dismantled. Her allies are running. She's facing life in prison. That's what I thought too. But her lawyer was insistent. Said it concerns threats you don't know about yet. Threats that could reach Lena and the baby. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. When? Adrian asked flatly. This afternoon, if you agree to it. Federal building downtown. They'll have her in an interview room, full security protocol. You'd be completely safe. Adrian looked at Lena. What do you think? I think I don't trust her. I think this is manipulation. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. What if Katerina really did know something? What if ignoring this put their child at risk? But if there's even a chance she knows about other threats? Then I have to go. Adrian's decision was made. Set it up, but I want extra security, and Lena stays here with a full detail. Already arranged. After Victor left, Adrian turned back to Lena. I'll be back in a few hours. This is just precaution. I know. She tried to smile. Go, get whatever information she has. I'll be fine. But as he kissed her goodbye and disappeared into the elevator, Lena couldn't shake the cold feeling settling in her chest. Something about this felt wrong. The federal building was exactly as grim as Adrian expected, all concrete and bulletproof glass, metal detectors, and armed guards. They processed him through 3 separate security checkpoints before leading him to a small interview room where Katerina waited, shackled to a table, looking far less composed than the last time he'd seen her. Prison had not been kind. Her blonde hair was dull, pulled back in a messy ponytail. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. Without makeup, she looked older, harder, defeated. But her eyes still held that calculating sharpness. Adrian, thank you for coming. Her voice was hoarse. He sat across from her without preamble. You have 5 minutes. Start talking. Always so efficient. She smiled bitterly. I suppose that's why you won and I lost. You never let emotion cloud your judgment. 4.5 minutes. Katerina's smile faded. Fine. You think I was working alone. I wasn't. The frame job, the attacks, the coordination, I didn't have those resources. I had a partner. Someone with even more reason to want you destroyed than I did. Adrian's blood chilled. Who? Your uncle. Dmitry Volkov. The name hit like a physical blow. Dmitry, his father's brother, who'd been pushed out of the family business decades ago, who disappeared to Russia shortly after Adrian's father died, who everyone assumed had accepted his exile and moved on. Dmitry's been in Moscow for 15 years. He was in Moscow, past tense. He's been back in the States for 8 months, building an operation designed to take back what he believes is rightfully his. I was just the distraction, Adrian. The visible threat that kept you focused on me while he positioned his real attack. You're lying, trying to buy yourself a deal by manufacturing threats. Am I? Katerina leaned forward as far as her chains allowed. Then explain how I knew about the island. Explain how my people knew exactly which warehouses to hit for maximum damage. Explain how I had access to your financial systems to set up the frame job. Her voice turned urgent. Dmitry gave me all of it. Promised we'd split your empire once you were destroyed. But the moment I got caught, he vanished. Left me holding the consequences while he moved to Phase 2. What's Phase 2? I don't know specifics, but I heard enough to know it involves your wife and child. He thinks if he can't take the empire directly, he'll destroy your bloodline. Make sure no Volkov heir survives to challenge his claim. Adrian was on his feet before conscious thought caught up, chair clattering backward. If you're lying to me, I'm not. I'm many things, Adrian, but I'm not stupid enough to lie about this. Dmitri is coming for your family, and unlike me, he doesn't care about empire or money. He wants revenge for 30 years of humiliation. He wants every trace of your father's legacy wiped from existence. Why tell me this now? Katerina's laugh was hollow. Because I'm going to die in here. Life sentence, no parole. I've got nothing left to lose and nothing to gain from staying silent. But you could stop him, could protect that girl and the baby she's carrying, and maybe, if you do, you'll remember that I gave you the information that saved them. You expect gratitude? You tried to kill her. I expect nothing, but I'm telling you anyway because even I'm not monster enough to let an innocent child die for Dimitri's grudges. She met his eyes. Check the waterfront warehouses, District 7. That's where he's been staging. You'll find proof there. Adrian studied her face, looking for the lie. But all he saw was exhaustion and something that might have been regret. If this is real, the feds will hear about it. You might buy yourself some consideration. I don't want consideration. I just want to sleep at night knowing I didn't let a baby die because I was too bitter to speak up. Katerina sagged in her chair. We're done here. Adrian left without another word, mind already racing through implications and strategies. If Dmitri was really back, if there was another attack coming, if Lena and the baby were truly in danger. He pulled out his phone the moment he cleared security, calling Victor. I need full intel on Dmitri Volkov. Everything. Where he's been, who he's been meeting with, any whisper of his presence in the States? And I need it yesterday. On it. What did Katerina say? That we're dealing with a bigger threat than we realized. Get Lena to the safe house in Connecticut. Maximum security. Nobody in or out without my direct authorization. Boss, are you sure? Now, Victor, please. He hung up and headed for his car, driver already pulling up to the curb. As they navigated through downtown traffic, Adrian stared out at the city he'd ruled for so long, realizing that power meant nothing if he couldn't protect the two people who mattered most. His phone rang. Unknown number. Every instinct screamed not to answer, but Adrian had never been one to hide from threats. Yes? Nephew. The voice was aged but strong, carrying the weight of decades and grudges. It's been a long time. Adrian's blood turned to ice. Dmitri, I hear you've been busy, cleaning up the empire, going legitimate, preparing to play happy family. A dark chuckle. Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead. Whatever issues you had with him died too. Did they? I think not. I think every time I look at what you've built on my birthright, those issues burn brighter. But that's about to end. If you threaten my wife or child, oh, Adrian, threats are beneath us. I prefer action. A pause. Tell me, have you ever watched Everything You Love burn? Because you're about to learn. The line went dead. Adrian's driver caught his eyes in the rearview mirror. Sir? Connecticut safe house, fastest route possible. And call ahead. Tell them we're going to code black. The highest level of security protocol. Total lockdown. As the car accelerated through city streets, Adrian allowed himself one moment of pure fear. Not for himself, but for Lena and their unborn child. Then he locked it down and became the man who'd survived 1,000 threats. Dmitri wanted war? He'd get one. But he'd learn what Adrian's enemies always learned too late. Nothing and no one touched what belonged to Adrian Volkov without paying a price measured in blood. The Connecticut safe house was a fortress disguised as a country estate. Rolling hills, pristine gardens, and enough hidden defenses to repel a small army. Lena had been moved there within an hour of Victor's call, confusion giving way to fear when she saw the security measures being implemented. Snipers on the roof, armored vehicles in the drive, electronic surveillance covering every approach. What's happening? She demanded when Victor briefed her on the situation. Adrian said this was just precaution. It was. Now it's not. Victor's expression was grim. We have confirmation of a credible threat. Boss wants you locked down here until he neutralizes it. What kind of threat? The kind I'm not authorized to discuss, but I can tell you that you're safe here. Nobody gets through these defenses. Helena appeared with tea and sympathy, having insisted on accompanying Lena from the penthouse. The older woman's presence was a comfort as they settled into the safe house's main living area, waiting for Adrian's arrival. He came roaring up the drive 2 hours later, emerging from his car like a storm given human form. Lena. He pulled her into his arms before she could speak, holding her with desperate intensity. Thank heaven. You're safe. Adrian, what's going on? Victor won't tell me anything, and you're acting like we're under siege. We might be. He guided her to a chair, kneeling before her. My uncle Dmitri is back. He's been working with Katerina, and according to her, he's planning something that targets you and the baby specifically. Lena's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Why? What did we do to him? Nothing, but we represent my father's legacy. Dmitri believes the empire should have been his. Since he can't take it from me directly, he wants to make sure no Volkov heir exists to inherit it. He wants to kill our baby. The words came out flat, emotionless. The only way to say them without breaking. He won't get the chance. I've got teams tracking him right now. By tomorrow, we'll know where he is and how to neutralize the threat. Adrian's hands framed her face. I won't let him hurt you, either of you, I swear it. How do we fight someone who wants us dead just for existing? The same way we fought everything else. Together, strategically, with every resource at our disposal. He pressed his forehead to hers. You stay here where you're protected. I go hunting. And when I find him, I end this permanently. You mean you kill him? Adrian didn't flinch from the truth. Yes. If that's what it takes to keep you safe, yes. Lena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that reality settle on her shoulders. This was the world she'd married into, the world where threats were answered with violence, where family turned against family, where safety came at the cost of blood. But it was also the world that had given her Adrian, had given her a chance at the family she'd always wanted, had given her hope for a future that didn't involve being invisible and alone. Okay, she said quietly. Do what you have to do. Just come back to us when it's done. Always. He kissed her softly. I love you. Both of you. That's the only truth that matters. Adrian left before dawn, taking half the security detail with him. The safe house felt emptier without his presence, even with guards stationed at every entry point. Lena tried to stay busy, helped Helena prepare meals, read pregnancy books that did nothing to calm her anxiety, paced the garden paths under Victor's watchful eye. By evening, restlessness had given way to exhaustion. She retreated to the master bedroom, intending to rest. That's when she heard the first explosion. The entire house shook, windows rattling in their frames. Alarms shrieked to life. Victor's voice barked orders through the security system. North perimeter breach. All units respond. Get her to the safe room now. 2 guards appeared in her doorway. Mrs. Volkov with us, quickly. They rushed her through hallways as gunfire erupted somewhere below. The safe room was hidden behind a bookshelf in the study, a reinforced steel chamber stocked with supplies, communications equipment, and enough weapons to outfit a small militia. Helena was already inside when they shoved Lena through the door. What's happening? Lena gasped. They're here. Helena's voice was steady despite the chaos. Victor will hold them off. We just need to wait for Adrian to... Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered and died, emergency power kicking in with dim red illumination. Through the safe room's security monitors, Lena watched Victor and his team engage with attackers pouring through the breached perimeter. The defenders were outnumbered but better positioned, trading fire from prepared defensive points. Then one of the monitors showed something that made Lena's blood freeze. A man in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished, walking through the chaos like he owned it. Even on the grainy security feed, the resemblance to Adrian was unmistakable. Dmitri Volkov had come personally to finish this. He's supposed to be afraid of you, Lena whispered to the image of Adrian in her mind. Supposed to be in hiding. Why would he come here himself? Unless this was exactly what Adrian wanted. Unless Adrian had deliberately left the safe house looking vulnerable to draw Dmitri out. Unless they were all bait in a trap designed to end the threat permanently. The realization hit like lightning. We need to get word to Adrian, Lena said urgently. Tell him Dmitri's here. This is his chance. Helena was already on the radio. Victor, confirm. Is that Dmitri Volkov on premises? Affirmative. Boss predicted he'd come himself if he thought you were undefended. Victor's voice was tight with concentration. Holding defensive positions until reinforcements arrive. ETA on the boss? 5 minutes. a new voice cut in. Adrian's voice, hard with deadly intent. Hold them there, Victor. Don't let Dmitri leave. Copy that. Lena watched the monitors as Adrian's plan unfolded. Victor's team wasn't trying to repel the attackers. They were corralling them, driving them toward the center of the estate, cutting off escape routes, turning hunters into prey. Then headlights appeared on every approach road simultaneously, 20 vehicles, maybe more, converging on the estate from all directions. Adrian had brought an army. The battle that followed was swift and brutal. Dimitri's forces found themselves surrounded, outgunned, caught in a kill box they'd walked into willingly. Within 10 minutes, it was over. Lena watched through the monitors as Adrian himself walked across the lawn toward where Dmitri knelt in the grass, hands bound, his men dead or captured around him. Even through the grainy feed, she could see the rage in Adrian's posture, the barely controlled violence promising retribution for the threat to his family. Should we go out there? Lena asked. Absolutely not, Helena said firmly. You stay in this safe room until Adrian gives the all-clear personally. That was his order. So they waited, watching a confrontation decades in the making play out on silent monitors. Adrian stood over his uncle, weapon drawn, and Lena knew with absolute certainty that Dmitri Volkov would not leave this estate alive. The man who'd threatened her child, who'd tried to destroy their future, would pay the ultimate price. And Lena found she couldn't summon any sympathy for him. The confrontation lasted exactly 4 minutes. Lena watched every second through the security monitors, her heart in her throat as Adrian stood over Dmitri with the cold precision of a man who'd made his decision long before arriving at the estate. You made a mistake. Adrian's voice came through the audio feed, each word sharp as a blade. You could have stayed in Moscow, could have lived out your days in exile, but you came after my family. Dmitri's laugh was bitter, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. Your family? You mean the contract bride and the bastard she's carrying? You've gone soft, nephew. Your father would be ashamed. My father was a monster who taught me power matters more than people. I spent 30 years believing that lie. Adrian's weapon never wavered. Then I met someone who showed me I was wrong, that the only power worth having is the kind that protects what you love instead of destroying it, touching. But it won't save you. Kill me, and you prove you're exactly what I always said, your father's son, drowning in blood. No. Killing you proves I'm a father protecting his child. There's a difference. Adrian's voice dropped to something colder than winter. You threatened an innocent woman and an unborn baby because of a grudge that died with my father. That makes you exactly the kind of monster that doesn't deserve mercy. So do it. Pull the trigger. Show your wife what you really are. Adrian's hand didn't shake. She already knows what I am. She loves me anyway. That's the difference between us, Dmitri. I have something worth living for. You only have hate. For a long moment, Adrian stood there, weapon aimed at his uncle's head, and Lena held her breath waiting for the shot that would end this. But it never came. Instead, Adrian lowered the gun and gestured to Victor. Federal custody. Let them deal with him. I've given them enough evidence of his crimes to put him away for 3 lifetimes. He can rot in prison knowing he failed. Dimitri's face twisted with rage. You think that's mercy? You think I'll survive a month in federal prison once your enemies know where to find me? I think that's justice, and I think dying quickly would be too kind. Adrian turned his back on his uncle, walking away without a second glance. Get him out of my sight. As Victor's men hauled Dmitri to his feet, the older man shouted one final threat. This isn't over. I'll find a way. I'll destroy everything you... The safe room door opened before Dmitri could finish. Adrian stood there, suit torn and bloodied, but eyes soft as they found Lena. It's over. You're safe. She flew into his arms, not caring about the blood or the weapons or the violence that still hung in the air like smoke. You didn't kill him. No. I promised you I'd be someone our child could be proud of. That starts with choosing justice over revenge. He pulled back to search her face. Are you okay? The baby? We're fine. Scared, but fine. She pressed her hand to his cheek, feeling the tension thrumming through him. You set this up. The whole thing was a trap. I needed him to come out of hiding, needed him to believe he had a chance. Adrian's jaw clenched. I'm sorry I used you as bait, but I couldn't risk him staying in the shadows, waiting for another opportunity. This had to end tonight. It's over now. Really over? Dimitri's going to federal prison. Katerina's already there. Every threat to you and our child is neutralized. His hand moved to her stomach, resting where their baby grew. We're free, Lena. Finally free, to build the life we want. Helena emerged from the safe room, surveying the damage to the estate with a practiced eye. I'll coordinate cleanup and repairs. You two should go somewhere quiet. You've earned it. Adrian nodded gratefully, then swept Lena into his arms, carrying her toward the waiting car despite her protests. I can walk, she said, laughing through tears of relief. I know, but I've spent weeks terrified I'd lose you. Let me have this. He settled her in the back seat, sliding in beside her. Take us to the lake house, he told the driver, and make sure we're not followed. The lake house was a 2-hour drive into the mountains, a smaller property Adrian kept for when the world got too heavy. They arrived as dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, the lake reflecting the colors like liquid light. Inside, Adrian built a fire while Lena collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with the adrenaline crash. He joined her moments later, pulling her against his chest, and they sat in silence watching flames dance in the hearth. I killed people tonight, Adrian said quietly. Dimitri's men who came with him. I gave them chances to surrender. Most didn't take them. I know. Does that change how you see me? Lena considered the question seriously, staring into the fire. You protected us. You protected our child. You could have killed Dimitri and no one would have blamed you, but you chose mercy instead. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. I'm still dangerous, Lena. Still capable of violence when pushed. Good. Because the world is dangerous, and I need someone capable of standing between our family and the threats out there. She turned in his arms to face him. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be present, to choose us, to keep working toward being the man you want to be. That's enough. What did I do to deserve you? You saw me when I was invisible. You made me feel like I mattered. You chose to change your entire life because you wanted to be worthy of us. She kissed him softly. You earned this, Adrian. Earned us. Stop questioning whether you deserve happiness and just accept it. He held her close as morning light filled the room, and for the first time in months, Lena felt truly safe. The threats were gone. The violence was over. What remained was just them and the future they'd fought so hard to reach. When should we do the real wedding? Adrian asked. I want to marry you properly before the baby comes. Soon, but small. Just people who matter. She smiled. I've had enough of grand gestures and public spectacles. I just want to stand in front of people we love and promise to choose each other every day. Victor will be offended if he's not best man. Helena will be offended if she's not matron of honor. They laughed together, planning their future in whispers and promises, and when they finally fell asleep tangled together on the couch, they dreamed of better days ahead. 3 weeks later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Lena stood in the garden behind Adrian's Connecticut estate, the same estate that had been a battlefield, now transformed into something beautiful. White flowers cascaded from every surface. String lights twinkled in the trees. 50 guests sat in elegant chairs facing a simple arch, where Adrian waited in a charcoal suit that made his storm-gray eyes even more striking. Lena wore ivory silk that flowed over her growing bump, her dark hair crowned with flowers, happiness radiating from every pore. Helena walked beside her down the aisle, the older woman's eyes bright with unshed tears. When Lena reached Adrian, he took her hands with such reverence she felt her own tears threaten. We're really doing this, she whispered. We're really doing this, he confirmed. The right way this time. The officiant began the ceremony, but Lena barely heard the traditional words. She was too focused on Adrian's face, on the raw emotion written there for everyone to see. This man who'd built an empire on control and secrecy was standing before witnesses wearing his heart completely exposed. When it came time for vows, Adrian cleared his throat, and silence fell across the garden. Lena, a year ago, I asked you to marry me as a business transaction. I thought I was buying convenience and discretion. Instead, I found something I didn't know I was missing, a reason to be better than I was. You walked into my life and refused to be invisible, even when invisibility had kept you safe your whole life. You challenged me. You saw past the reputation to the man underneath. You gave me hope that I could be more than what I'd been raised to be. His voice roughened with emotion. I promised to spend every day earning the gift of your love, to protect you and our child with everything I have, to build a life where our family is surrounded by light instead of shadows, to be present for pancake mornings and bedtime stories, to choose you every single day, no matter what challenges we face. Tears streamed down Lena's face as she spoke her own vows. Adrian, you taught me that being invisible wasn't the same as being safe, that I deserved to be seen and loved and chosen. You transformed your entire world because you wanted to be worthy of us, and that kind of love is the most powerful thing I've ever known. I promise to stand beside you as you continue becoming the man you want to be, to remind you that you're more than your past, to build a family with you where love matters more than power, and presence matters more than perfection. I choose you, today and always. The officiant pronounced them married, and when Adrian kissed her, the entire garden erupted in applause. But Lena barely heard it over the sound of her own heart, finally at peace. The reception was everything she'd never known she wanted, intimate and warm, filled with laughter and stories. Victor gave a surprisingly touching best man speech about watching Adrian transform from a cold strategist into a man capable of pancakes and patience. Helena told embarrassing stories about Lena's attempts to learn Greek cooking on the island. As the sun set and dancing began, Adrian pulled Lena onto the floor for their first dance as husband and wife. Truly husband and wife this time, not bound by contracts but by choice. Happy? He murmured against her hair. Deliriously. You? More than I knew how to be. His hand rested on her stomach, where their child grew stronger every day. Thank you for saving me. We saved each other. She leaned into his embrace. That's what makes this work. They swayed together under string lights and stars, surrounded by the people they'd chosen as family, and Lena felt the final pieces of her life click into place. She'd started this journey alone, invisible, running from a past that promised nothing but survival. Now she stood at the center of something beautiful, a family she'd built with the most unexpected person, a future bright with possibility, a love that had survived bullets and betrayal and emerged stronger for it. Months passed in a blur of preparation and transformation. Adrian officially dissolved the last of his illegal operations, channeling resources into the community programs he'd designed. The first center opened in Brooklyn, a sprawling facility offering job training, addiction recovery, and childcare services to families who needed it most. Lena worked alongside him, using her medical background to design healthcare initiatives that actually served the community instead of exploiting it. She hired former foster youth as staff, gave them opportunities she'd never had, helped them build futures that didn't require invisibility for survival. Together, they turned blood money into second chances. The federal case against Adrian quietly disappeared as prosecutors realized he'd given them everything they needed to dismantle actual criminal operations while transforming his own empire into something legitimate. Dmitry went to trial and received 3 consecutive life sentences. Katerina took a plea deal that meant she'd never see freedom again. And through it all, Lena's belly grew round with promise. They found out the baby's gender at 20 weeks. A girl, perfectly healthy, already stubborn, according to the ultrasound tech who struggled to get good images as she kicked and moved. She gets that from you, Adrian said, watching his daughter's grainy image on the screen with wonder written across his face. She gets that from both of us, Lena corrected. Stubborn runs in the Volkov family now. They painted the nursery together. Soft lavender walls, white furniture, a ceiling covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. Adrian assembled the crib with the same intense focus he'd once brought to criminal enterprise, refusing to let Lena help despite her amusement at his struggle with the instructions. I'm building my daughter's bed, he'd said with dignity. I should be able to manage furniture assembly. You run a multi-million-dollar empire, but Swedish furniture defeats you? This is more important than business. This has to be perfect. And it was. Everything was perfect in a way that felt earned rather than purchased. Lena went into labor on a snowy January evening, 3 days past her due date. Adrian had been pacing the penthouse like a caged tiger for 72 hours, jumping at every wince or shift in her position. When her water broke during dinner, he went absolutely white. Okay, hospital. We need to. Where's the bag? Did we pack the bag? He was already on his phone calling the driver, alerting the hospital, moving with frantic efficiency. Lena grabbed his hand, laughing through the first contraction. Adrian, breathe. We have time. How can you be calm right now? Because I've been preparing for this for 9 months. You've been preparing by panicking. I'm not panicking. I'm being proactive. You just tried to put my shoes on the wrong feet. He looked down, realized she was right, and actually laughed. Okay, maybe slight panic. But we're having a baby, Lena. We're about to be parents. That's terrifying. It's also beautiful. Now help me to the car before our daughter decides she doesn't want to wait for the hospital. Labor was long and hard and absolutely worth it. Adrian stayed by her side through every contraction, letting her break his hand when the pain peaked, whispering encouragement when she was certain she couldn't continue. When the doctor finally said it was time to push, he anchored her with his presence, his voice, his unwavering belief that she could do this. And at 3:47 a.m. on a snowy January morning, Sofia Elena Volkov entered the world screaming her displeasure at the cold, bright hospital room. The nurse placed her on Lena's chest, and the entire world stopped. She was perfect, tiny and red and furious, with a cap of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn gray like her father's. She had Adrian's stubborn chin and Lena's delicate features, and she was absolutely perfect. "Hi, baby girl," Lena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been waiting for you." Adrian stood frozen beside the bed, staring at his daughter like she'd hung the moon and stars personally. When he finally reached out to touch her tiny hand, his finger looked enormous against her delicate palm. Sofia's fingers closed around his in an instinctive grip, and Adrian Volkov, the man who'd survived violence and betrayal, who'd built empires and destroyed enemies, who'd walked through fire to protect his family, broke down completely. "She's so small," he choked out. "How is she so small? All babies are small. That's kind of their thing." Lena guided his hand to stroke Sofia's head. "Want to hold her?" The nurse helped transfer the baby to Adrian's arms, and he cradled her with such careful reverence that Lena's heart cracked open all over again. "Hello, Sofia," he said softly. "I'm your father. And I promise you, I promise, I will spend every day of my life making sure you grow up knowing you're safe and loved and valued. You'll never wonder if you matter. You'll never feel invisible. You'll know exactly how precious you are." Sophia yawned, apparently unimpressed by the speech, and snuggled into her father's chest. Adrian looked at Lena with wonder written across his face. "We made this. We made her. We did. And we're going to raise her to be strong and kind and brave." Lena reached up to wipe tears from his cheek. Together, he agreed. They spent the rest of the night in a cocoon of new parent exhaustion and overwhelming love, taking turns holding Sophia, marveling at her tiny features, wondering how something so small could feel so monumentally important. Victor arrived at dawn with flowers and a teddy bear so large it barely fit through the door. "She's beautiful," he said gruffly, peering at the sleeping baby. "She's got your eyes, boss." "She's got Lena's everything else, thank heaven." Adrian adjusted this blanket around Sophia with practiced care despite having only held her for a few hours. "Victor, meet Sofia Elena. Sophia, this is Uncle Victor who will teach you inappropriate things when you're older." "I will teach her excellent things, like how to throw a punch and run a security detail." Victor's rare smile softened his weathered face. "Congratulations, both of you." Helena arrived next, immediately taking charge of making sure Lena ate and Adrian slept. "You look like death," she told Adrian bluntly. "When's the last time you closed your eyes?" "I can't sleep. What if she needs something?" "She needs a father who's coherent enough to function. I'll watch her. You rest." Adrian looked torn, but Lena intervened. "Listen to Helena. I need you functional for when we go home tomorrow." Reluctantly, he dozed in the chair beside Lena's bed, one hand always touching either his wife or his daughter, as if he needed physical contact to believe they were real. When Lena woke from her own nap, she found Adrian sitting by the window holding Sophia, both of them bathed in afternoon sunlight. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "How I almost missed this. If I'd signed those divorce papers, if I'd let you walk away, if I'd chosen empire over everything else. He looked at her, eyes bright with emotion. I would have lost everything that matters. But you didn't. You chose differently. That's what counts. I chose you. Best decision I ever made. Sophia stirred in his arms, making small noises of protest, and Adrian stood immediately to bring her to Lena for feeding. As their daughter nursed, Adrian sat beside them, arm around Lena's shoulders, and they existed in that timeless space where nothing existed except their small family and the love binding them together. 6 months later, on a warm summer evening, they hosted a garden party at the Connecticut estate to celebrate Sophia's baptism and the opening of the 5th Community Center. The baby had grown from a tiny, fragile newborn into a chubby, smiling infant who already had her father wrapped around her finger. She laughed when Adrian made faces, reached for him whenever he entered a room, and generally ruled their household with tyrannical adorableness. Lena had never been happier. She stood on the terrace watching Adrian show Sophia the flowers in the garden, explaining each one with serious concentration despite the fact that she was far too young to understand. "Look at that," Helena said, joining her. "Who would have thought Adrian Volkov would turn into such a devoted father?" Anyone who looked past the reputation to see the man underneath. Lena smiled as Sophia grabbed Adrian's nose, making him laugh. He just needed someone to give him permission to be soft. You both transformed each other. That's rare. Helena squeezed her shoulder. Your parents would be proud of the woman you've become, the mother you are. Lena had told Helena about her childhood, the foster care, the loneliness, the years of feeling invisible. The older woman had become the mother figure Lena had never had, offering wisdom and support without judgment. Thank you, Lena said quietly, for everything, for taking care of us on the island, for being there when we needed you, for becoming family. Someone had to make sure you two didn't self-destruct from stubbornness. Helena's eyes twinkled. Besides, I'm too invested now. That granddaughter of my heart needs her Yaya Helena. Adrian appeared with Sophia, the baby reaching for Lena with chubby arms. Someone wants her mama, he said, transferring the baby with practiced ease. Also, Victor wants to know if we're ready for toasts. They gathered everyone in the garden as the sun set, golden light painting everything in warm tones. Victor stood with a glass of champagne, clearing his throat importantly. A year ago, I watched my boss walk into a warehouse to save the woman he loved. I thought he was insane, throwing away everything for someone he'd known less than a year. Victor's expression softened. I was wrong. He wasn't throwing anything away. He was choosing the only things that actually matter. He raised his glass toward Adrian and Lena. To the Volkovs, to building something better than what came before, to proving that it's never too late to choose love over power, family over empire, hope over fear. And to Sophia, who'll grow up knowing her father is a man worth admiring. To the Volkovs, the crowd echoed. Adrian pulled Lena close, Sophia babbling happily between them, and kissed his wife's temple. Not bad for a contract marriage. Not bad at all. She turned in his arms. Though I seem to remember someone saying this was supposed to be temporary. No emotions, no strings. I was an idiot. Clearly. Good thing I'm patient with idiots. Good thing I'm hopelessly in love with smart women who challenge me. They kissed as their daughter laughed and their friends cheered and the sun painted the sky in shades of promise. And in that moment, surrounded by love hard-won and futures built from ashes, Lena understood that this was what happy endings actually looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but earned. They'd survived betrayal and bullets. They'd transformed empires and escaped enemies. They'd fought for each other when it would have been easier to walk away. And now they stood at the beginning of forever, holding their daughter between them, building a legacy measured not in power or money, but in love and second chances and the quiet courage it took to choose hope every single day. What are you thinking? Adrian asked, noticing her distant expression. That we made it. Against every odd, through every obstacle, we made it here. Best journey I ever took, even though it involved kidnapping and explosions. Especially because of that. The easy paths are boring. We earned this, Lena. Every moment of happiness, every morning with our daughter, every day we get to build something better. She kissed him softly. I love you, Adrian Volkov. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for choosing us, for becoming the man you wanted to be. I love you, Lena Volkov. Thank you for giving me a reason to change, for believing I could be more than my past, for building this beautiful life with me. Sophia chose that moment to grab both their faces, smashing their cheeks together and squealing with delight at her handiwork. They laughed, pulling their daughter close, and danced together as stars began to appear overhead. What had started as a desperate transaction became the greatest truth of their lives. That love, real love, wasn't about contracts or convenience. It was about choosing each other through chaos, about building families from broken pieces, about transforming darkness into light, and never giving up on the possibility that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. They'd found each other in the shadows and built an empire of hope in the light. And as the music played and their daughter laughed and the future stretched before them bright with promise, both Adrian and Lena knew that this messy, beautiful, hard-won life was worth every battle they'd fought to reach it. This was their happy ending, not because everything was perfect, but because they'd chosen to face imperfection together. And that choice made all the difference. All.